Welcome back, everybody, to our 7-part rendering floor plan segment. Today, we are going to be nearing the end with rendering furnishings. Okay, so I think this is one of the most fun parts is finally getting to render the furniture. So it's really helpful if you practice this on furniture items on a different piece of paper before you work on the final, just so that you can get your technique down and you feel comfortable with it. Um, always remember that we're thinking in terms of 3 values: light, medium, and dark. Without that, it's hard for us to get depth. Now, it is always easier if we start with the lightest value first and then build up to our darkest values. And don't forget, we made a shadow map for this reason, to help us know where light colors should be and where dark colors should be. After we get the light colors, we're going to work on our medium and dark values. And at the end, we'll be adding pencil just to give more dimension and highlights. So the first one we're going to take a look at is how to render our green dining chairs. So here is my recipe. Celadon is my lightest color. Dark green is my darkest marker color, and I mix the celadon and the dark green together to give me my mid value. And then I have a dark green pencil for shadow areas, and then my white pencil. Okay, so we're going to look at how I did one chair, and hopefully this will help you as you're moving forward with your rendering. All right, so we're going to get started. And you can do this a couple of different ways. If you're super fast, you can render all 4 chairs at one time. But if you're kind of new to it, you may want to just start with one, because we're mixing paint, we need the paint to stay, or the ink to stay wet. And so if you're not very quick, the ink will dry and we won't be able to mix it very well. So I'm starting with my celadon green, and I'm just going to outline to help me keep within the lines as I'm rendering. And then I'm going to go back with the blunt end and just fill in. So again, starting with that lightest wash of color all over. Okay. Once I get that all done with my celadon, it's time to grab the dark green marker. Now keep your celadon handy, and I recommend leaving the cap off, because what we're going to do is like mix the ink on the paper. So I'm going to come in with my dark green, and I'm just using these kind of messy, scrubby strokes in here. I know that the back of the seat will be darker, and I know that the back of the chair near the seat will be the darkest area in that. So I grab the green, and then I grab that celadon again to mix it. I add in some more dark green where I think it needs it, and now I'm back to the celadon to mix it. Okay, and that's how you get that kind of mottled variation in color. I'm going to do the same exact thing on the back, a little bit of the dark green, and now I'm going back with the celadon, and I'm rubbing that in, mixing it on the page. Okay, all right, and that's pretty much it for getting that dark middle value and the light value. All right, so when that's all done, what you want to do is grab your pencils. Now again, you can save all of the shadows and the highlights for the end. I kind of tend to do this as I go. So in the darkest areas of the chair, I'm going to grab that dark green pencil, and just to give it some more definition, and this also cleans up the edges. Okay, and I generally will use a cross-hatching effect to make sure that I have good coverage. I'm doing the same thing on the back. I'm giving it a little dark line by where the wood frame will be, cleaning up the edge there. My light source is going to be coming from the top, right, for ambient lighting in the room. And then I'm saying a light source kind of coming in this direction. And so I'm adding highlights on those 2 sides. And again, that kind of cross hatch. Some people are really fantastic with colored pencils. It's not been my strong suit, so I don't use them that much. I generally use them towards the end for cleaning up and highlights. You can do beautiful renderings with just your colored pencils, but it takes quite a bit of time. Okay, and then I'm adding a sepia for the back of the chair, and I'm just going to grab a dark brown colored pencil and then a white pencil to give it a little bit more dimension. Some shadow coming from that side, and then we'll stick a highlight on the other end. And that's it for rendering your dining chair. Okay, and so next we're going to work on this rug. I've got my recipe. I'm using cream and eggshell, cinnamon toast for kind of my shadow or shaded color, and then a brown pencil for that surface texture. So this is going to be something like a sisal or a seagrass that you would see. This is the finished looks like. All right, so in here I've already laid down that black border with marker for the edge. And I'm going to come in with my cream and just do that overall color. Working pretty quickly. You want to make sure you get between the chairs and also get between the chair and the table to make sure that you've got good coverage. And once that is done, you're going to come back with your second color, which is the eggshell. And because this is a texture pattern, I'm not going just in linear strokes, vertically or horizontally. It's just kind of an up and down motion, cross-hatch motion, and you could even do it in circles. I wanted the color to be a little bit loose, so I didn't do it in full circles the way that I did those upper cabinets on the other video, or even the dining chairs themselves previously. Just trying to get that color in there. And once you feel like you've got a good coverage, I've now grabbed my cinnamon toast, and based on my shadow map, I'm adding in the shaded areas. Okay, so the shadows around my chair, shadows between my table and the chair, and I'm drawing on the shadow and then kind of dabbing it because this has an irregular surface texture and I want that to come through with the marker. So I don't need to have real solid defined shadows. And I'm bringing in that color again at the edges of my rug, just kind of dispersing it throughout. And when I've got all those shadows in where I think they need to be, still going, I can then grab my brown pencil and I want to create some surface texture on the rug. So just kind of a crosshatch motion, vertical and horizontal strokes in several different places on that rug will give it that texture. Okay, and remember, just have fun with it, just relax and take your time. And when you get done with your brown pencil, you can even go back and add some white pencil to this just to give it a little bit more definition. And if you feel like if you know you're done with the rug, you feel like your shadows were not quite dark enough, you can use that brown pencil to enhance the shadows around your table and chairs as well. And that's it. Then your rug is done. Another finish that students sometimes have trouble with initially is leather. So the thing to remember about a leather finish is that it needs high reflectivity. Also, leather generally has a lot of different colors in it, especially if you're doing an aged leather, so make sure that you've got enough variation. So here I am working with 3 different markers. I've got brick beige, I've got sienna. I also threw some dark brown in there with a dark brown pencil and a white pen. And this is the finished chair. And it's really the strong highlights that make it look like a leather instead of looking like a fabric. So let's show you how I applied this color. Okay, so leather is going to be a mottled effect. So I'm going to start with that brick beige and just give it an overall color wash. Okay. And not too neat, going in circles to make sure that I get enough ink on there. Once I get that first color, I'm going to grab the second and I'm going right over that. Because the color is dark, I'm giving it just a little bit of an outline to help me stay where it needs to be. So we're starting to get a really good solid color. Okay, making sure it gets all filled in. And you could do this with the thicker edge of your marker as well. All right. So once that is all done, I'm going to grab the last marker, which is that dark brown marker. And again, dabbing it in there, you can see the ink pooling. And that's fine because I want this to be a distressed leather that has a lot of kind of variation in color. And so there it goes, just dabbing it in. And it's basically like the marker's doing all the work. Okay. And so don't worry about getting that last color all solid. When that's done, you want it to dry for just a second. I'm now going to come in with my dark brown pencil, and based on my shadow map, I know that the light is coming through the window. So I know that anything that's on the right side is going to be light and left side is going to be dark. I'm also going to throw in a few lines to make it a kind of a cracked leather surface, and now I'm going to enhance the shading with that pencil. All right. And again, this is why it's so important to have that kind of shadow map reference. All right, coming up the back of the chair, hitting that side, and I'm cleaning up the edge as well. And so still looks pretty flat at this point with just the shading on it. But now I'm about to grab that white pencil and you can see that it really changes the whole look of it. So again, knowing that my window is here, strong highlights on anything on the right. Right. So the outside of that arm, the inside of this arm gets it, the top across the front because leather is very reflective. And you can even give your some kind of crack marks, which is indicative of a leather finish as well. And there your leather chair is done. And the last finish that we're looking at is this blue velvet sofa. Now these dark finishes can be a little bit scary, but don't worry, you can do this easily if you just follow the steps. We're going to start with the lightest color, which in our recipe is the light cerulean blue, and we're going to build that color. Let's take a look at that process. So here I am starting with, I've already colored this sofa in with that light cerulean blue. Now I'm going to apologize for my head being in the way so much in this. And now I'm grabbing that indigo marker. And I know the back of the sofa is going to be really dark because there's not any light back there. Right now here I'm going to work kind of fast. I've got the indigo and then this is my light blue. And see how I'm pulling that color? These are ink based or alcohol based, so it will disperse that ink if I work quickly enough. So I'm going to go back. I think it needs a little bit more dark. And then grabbing again and smoothing out that color. Right? And we're going to do the same thing on the other cushions. First is that dark indigo blue, and then my light blue again. So it's only two colors of markers that we're using here. And then we're shading, 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 mix, mix, mix. So if you work too slowly, the ink will start to dry and you won't be able to get it to mix. So you want to work quickly. For marker paper, you do get a little bit more time if you're working on trace paper or vellum because they don't absorb as much. All right, so again, I know from my shadow map, this is a window coming through this way. And so anything that is on the right side is going to be lighter and the left side is going to have a shadow. You also want to pay close attention to things like behind my pillows. It should be darker in there. And even the edges of the shades down here. Okay. Just working kind of quickly to make sure that I can get all of the colors to blend together. And if it gets a little bit messy, don't worry, we can use our colored pencils to clean that up. For most of the Prismacolor markers, there is a coordinating pencil. Right, so be careful coming in behind your pillow. Try not to get too much on the pillows. And again, coloring in little circles just to get a nice solid color. Giving it a little bit of an outline, and then using that light blue to pull that color forward. And you just keep going kind of back and forth until you feel like you have a good gradient of color. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing for the other two cushions. And I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit. Alright, there's a chaise, finishing that up. Right, and now we're going to get to the pencil, because the pencil really helps this. So again, referencing the shadow map, knowing that light's coming in this way, I'm going to start to add highlights to anything that is on the right. And be sure to add a little highlight along the edges of the cushions as well. And you can also go in with your dark Prismacolor pencil and clean up areas like this in the back of the sofa and your cushions. And just take your time and really think about what you are rendering and where the light is going to be coming from. Okay. Okay, just moving this forward a little bit. Now going in with my dark pencil to clean up the lines. And there you go, that's your finished chair. Okay, now we are ready to come back with our next video, and we're going to be finishing up our floor.